Hey, Fan Expo Denver, how's it going, everybody? I see a lot of people out and about. I know you can hear me. I know because I see you looking at me.
I know, he doesn't even want to acknowledge. He's like, who?
Don't
me?
make eye contact.
Yeah,
Don't make eye contact.
Just look down. Look down. Look at my shoes.
Come sit down. Join
Please.
us. If you like podcasts, we're going to talk podcasts.
We won't even hold the LA Dodgers hat against you. We promise.
There you go. Let's do a quick round of introductions. We have our special guest to the left of me.
I am Smurf. I am with 5280 Geek. I am also a resident podcaster, international podcaster, city. I'm all over the place.
What's all the terms he gave us earlier?
They're
not for us.
They're not for
everybody.
that's not for public consumption.
Okay.
Former radio personality.
And then to my right, a not so special guest.
Wow, that hurts. Tyler from the Project Nerd family here, podcaster extraordinaire, the talent, if you will. Here to
The face.
Here to try to get the face of the
Shots
podcast, if
fired.
you will. A face for radio, for sure.
And I am Iggy Mishniaki, the founder of Project Nerd, who we just celebrated our 10th anniversary, by the way.
10 years.
10 years, which I would say about 9.5 of those we've been podcasting. And we do about 24 podcasts pretty regularly.
Yeah. Regular podcast for me every Wednesday.
Some not so regular.
I feel like
Yours are regular.
mine are regular.
a chunk of this, at least for us recently, is going to be do as we say, not as we do for the podcasting 101.
Maybe. I mean, we got my camera guy Vadim out there, so he's seen all of the bad edits, and he's like, nope, can't use this. No, you look stupid here. And he makes me look a lot better than what I am.
Right. So for those of you that are checking this out afterwards, because we'll have a recording going out, the audience is so packed.
It is.
Packed right
to
now.
the gills. Vadim, get all these people, please.
We might just pose our own
Especially this
questions
pretty
to start.
smiling one up front. I mean, they have, energy overflowing right now.
It's
It's party.
Hi, how you doing?
See, we got people waving.
Waving,
now.
yes.
So we do have, combined, what is that like? I don't even think we could add up the hours of podcasting experience.
I mean, I've been doing podcasting since 2012, and then I was on air, and I was on air for radio in the early aughts.
Yeah.
So
I like how you I'm going to leave it at early odds because
early
I
odds.
don't want to
can't-
talk age.
No.
Talk age.
See, that's part of the thing. You got to keep the illusion strong and go with it. And we got Marty in the house.
Perfect. So we used to do this as a panel at a lot of conventions. It was pretty successful. A lot of people asking. Pretty much everybody podcasts now. And to be honest, this show could really be summed up into podcasting 101. How do you get started? You just do it.
You just do it.
You just do it. We've started with a snowball mic in the middle of a table.
We had a folding table with a snowball mic, and it was the quality was
The shotgun mic, the big round thing.
Yeah,
Top
that
notch.
big.
It's like a giant softball on steroids.
Right,
It's
and
great.
every episode Tyler would say we were in my mom's basement. So
We had an air conditioner right above our heads
No, we
that
had
would
to turn
kick
the
on
AC up.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Get a little
She's
warm.
just sitting there just sweating buckets.
right, yeah, it was.
We didn't have to worry about going over time because it would get too hot.
Yeah. You're like,
right. We
wrapping
stopped.
it up, guys.
We wrapped it up.
the toast is done. The podcast is over.
I mean, but those are early experiences, and we were just talking about you actually having a studio.
Yes, I actually have a committed studio space that we produce.
So even though our start to your now is not connected, look at how far we've come.
We've come a long way.
Look at how
But you
far-
know what? To be fair, it is making the right choices at the right times and doing what comes naturally that I think, and that's one of the things that we try to emphasize to people. Don't go against the grain. Do what comes naturally to you, and people eat that up. That's, I think, why we've been successful.
Gosh, you touched on a point there, because Tyler, you'll vouch for this. We would try, in the early days, we would try to fit to a script and cover certain things.
You can't do
And those
this.
episodes
I
were
mean,
terrible.
here's the thing. Some people can, and there are definitely shows that we format that work that way. But when it came to just general,
Just us.
shooting the breeze, we would have we have to hit this point, then we have to do this segment, then we have to do this segment, and it went real well.
So doing morning radio, talk radio. Yeah, that's right out the window. It is.
Right.
It is completely from the hip. So that's probably the only reason I have a jump on you on that, because it was.
Well, we learned
You
quickly.
make it
that
up.
to
Yeah,
be the
you
case.
do it quickly.
So the episodes that seemed to go off the rails were the ones that people would come to us and be most excited about. And they would say things like, well, I like the show because Tyler's giving me crap or something like that. It would be us being ourselves is what people found. Because to be honest, covering the 12 pop culture things that happened this week is on 500 other 5 million other podcasts now. And Tyler and Iggy were only on that one.
Yeah.
So
Go play to your strengths.
right. It was great advice to start. And also too, I know there's a handful of y'all out there I'm assuming you're sitting down because you want to. So if y'all have questions, this is, like I said, it's originally modeled for us to help answer questions. So feel free to let us know.
I am curious now because once upon a time when we started doing this a decade ago, like it was still, now it wasn't a new, it wasn't a new form of media, but there was a lot of like technical,
Still, yeah.
like how do I record it? How do I upload it? How's an RSS feed work? That kind of stuff. And now it's just kind of like.
Well, to be fair, that's like the number one question I get of like, what gear do I need? What do I need to do?
What gear do you work with?
I have like a full-blown mixing board and a KG speaker or mics, and I got like a full-blown Roland wiring, and my Mackie 12 is my portable when I do interviews at cons and things like that. So
okay.
It just honestly depends. But I've got like 3 different boards. One's like a backup for the backup.
Right. Yeah. That's the one thing I've learned. If you're
how many
traveling,
boards of those have I had over the years? Like we used to travel with 3-4 boards at
I
a time.
still, if we'd have more space, I have that giant, it's a gun case literally that has just my soundboards and microphones in it.
Well, and my voiceover booth, I have a dedicated voiceover booth, and I got a Scarlett Solo 2 in that. And that is probably bang for the buck. It's $119, and it's probably the best thing you can buy for a startup podcast.
You're speaking beautiful words to me too. Talking about value, talking about great things. So something actually that we are working with right now that I like is Zoom has gone so far that they have a whole podcast series of devices.
They do.
So we have the P8 soundboard and we have the P4 for the mobile, and they both are great because they have the built-in memory card. So you're basically getting an all-in-one with a soundboard. It has you can upload sounds, you can connect people via Bluetooth, and again, like I said, you can either audio out to something else. We live stream with it, or you can record straight to the card.
Yep.
The one thing I will say is they have a lot of plastic parts, so you have to be very careful with that. I've learned that quickly.
Just don't throw it in a bag.
Right.
Not so bad.
Well, and we talk about it, and it used to be the standard. Now there's so many more podcast specific, but especially if you're going to be mobile with it, or you're going to do like man on the street sort of stuff, you still can't beat the Zoom H4n.
No.
Just grab one of those, grab a couple Shure mics, a couple cables, and you're set for just about any situation.
Well, to be fair, I still have like a digital voice recorder just that I throw on the table.
There you go.
Just in case.
Just in case.
Just
There's
in
always-
case.
That's lesson number 2. Just in case. There
You need
go.
a backup for the backup for the backup.
Yeah, right. No, but a good point. I don't think to this day, I think the Zoom H4n was something that we picked up like 8-9 years ago. So it's an older device, and to this day, we definitely don't go a year when we go to shows where we don't at least see another 1 or 2 people walking around with theirs. No, Zoom has done a great deed for the podcast community. Their older devices, their newer devices too. But as you mentioned too, there's a lot of great tech out there, stationary, that you could get at a very decent price. You don't need a $10,000 soundboard that has 40 mics and all those that you would see at a theater somewhere, right?
It just makes you feel cool when you're using
Listen,
it.
I like to feel cool.
I like
though.
the buttons. I like the lights. I like the dials.
It's like a boom. Booms make you feel so cool.
It does. I feel like I'm like flying a ship. I got my monitors. I got all sorts of stuff. I'm Ziggy Stardust, baby.
But it kind of ties back to what you're saying. You feel comfortable with all
Yes,
that too.
I
So
do.
that's important, feeling in your own skin when you're recording there. If you're on the go, though, you mentioned you have that. You mentioned a couple of the devices that. Is there any microphone-specific thing you like? What are we working with here?
Actually,
AKG.
we've got. This is actually the Rode Wireless. The Rode Wireless is, and you're mic'd up with it too. This is actually for the price wireless mics that pair directly to your camera, and this also has its own independent recorder inside of it. So it will pick up whatever you do, and you can just download it. My camera guy, Vadim, is running it, and he's got everything download directly to it.
I just did an interview with the local public broadcasting guy, and he had exactly the same thing.
These things are great. I think for $200 you get 2 mics, the transmitter, and the power supply on it will last pretty much all day, as Vadim will attest to many of the shots that we have done.
Much cheaper than the lapels that I can't even
Oh,
pronounce
the lav
the
mics
name.
nowadays,
Oh,
those
God.
little tiny things that pick up like the wind but not you.
Yes.
It's as bad as gaffer tape. You're like, son of a bitch, you stick to yourself but nothing else.
What would you say? And Tyler, I'll ask you too. But I probably know some of your answers. What would you say was your biggest blunder in your podcasting? Like is there that mistake that you still wake up in the middle of the night sweating about?
Oh, but see, I mean, there's been a few interviews. There is one. I had this interview with a celebrity, and the mic jack was not plugged into the laptop. No. I was getting levels, and I could hear everything in my headphones, but the plug because I was plugged directly into the board, but the plug was not recording into the laptop.
terrible.
And it's just, if I was still on the air at the radio station, that would have been it. I would, done, you're out. Thanks for showing up, Smurf. We appreciate you. Bye.
There you go. What about you, Tyler? Is there one
I've
that stands
got
out?
two in
we have
particular.
it. Because we have a lot.
There's a plethora of horror stories I could tell. Two that stand out. One is early in the first days of using the H4n. And I knew it, but you know it, and like you double check it, and you triple check it, and you hit the button, and you know you've got it, and then you still, when you're using an H4n and you hit the record button, you have to hit it twice. You hit it once.
Yep.
To turn on the levels,
Once
and then
to
you
arm
can
it,
check it, and then
once
once
to
to record.
fire.
I definitely did a solid 30-minute interview with someone, and was just on the level check, didn't start it. Comic Creator, and then we went back and did it again, and the batteries died halfway through the second interview.
With the
trying
same
to redo it.
person, too. So it just became
the
embarrassing.
professionalism
at that point.
was on another level. And then the other one was, I definitely did one. It was a press junket. I think it was at C2E2, speaking with some creators, and it was like moving from table to table. And it was one of those things where it wasn't really a good situation to set up a full equipment, so just took the H4n on the stand, set it on the table, but the mics were still set to 180 cartoid instead of 90.
So
got
blown
back
out.
to the booth and listened to it. It was just like pure background garbage, static. Couldn't make heads or tails of it.
So if lesson number 2 we can tell you or impart upon you is know your equipment. Because even in interviews, I was interviewing JT, Justin Tiersten, and halfway through, the battery dies. And no warning, no nothing, done. And I'm just like, and JT just keeps talking. And I can't cut him off because he's on a roll. And if you've ever worked with or seen JT at a con, there's no stopping the boy once he's on a roll. So I just sit there and just go, yeah, this is my hell.
Right.
So know the gear, know how it works. That is pretty much like lesson number 2.
I think my biggest one remembering is I don't know if the audience is familiar with a little actor who played a character named Freddy Krueger. I think
Robert Englund?
Yeah, Robert Englund.
Nice.
If you're familiar with that guy, clearly you are.
Oh, yes.
I have a great video clip of me talking to him, no audio. And he pushed back he pushed back the shuttle, the black car service at the convention we're at multiple times. He was super excited to talk to us. So we tried to go quick, and his handler kept trying to get us, and he just kept, you're talking about, they just keep going. And same thing you had. The microphone was hooked into a certain piece to where the headphones could hear the microphones, but then that microphone piece was not going to the camera. And
I think that's number 1. That's mistake number 1. I think that's the most common one most of the time.
But I want to point out, and I'm going to humble brag for us all for a second, because it'll help us get to a point. We've already talked about the years, the different podcasts we've had. We've started name dropping people we get the chance to talk to. We get brought out to conventions across the country. We travel on our own dime as well across the country, and we have thousands and thousands of listeners. Yet all these mistakes are still real mistakes we made. So I think too, it's the reminder that nothing's going to be perfect. Nobody's going to be perfect. When you're listening to those celebrity podcasts you listen to, there's episodes that sound worse than other ones and things like that. It just goes back full circle to the beginning. Just do it. Just do it and have fun doing it. And again, when you're having fun doing it, that's usually too when you see the most success.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, the bad thing and the good thing is these mistakes are out there for everyone to see. There is no shame. You thick skin all of the way because the trolls are waiting. The trolls are always waiting. And it doesn't matter. You can hit the cheap seats, and there's been interviews that I know him and I have done that have been stellar. But you've got that one troll. Why didn't you ask this question? Your nose hairs were showing. You're an evil person.
And they speak up much quicker than the people who like your stuff.
The people that like you fight to hear from, and the ones that hate you, God love them, they're the first ones at the gate. Hello.
Tyler, let's start with your story, but I'll ask you this one too. That moment, that first time somebody you didn't know, so not our moms, unfortunately.
Okay.
The first time somebody you didn't know came up to you and said something that just made you realize, oh, there's people
actually
that
listen to it that aren't your mom or something like that.
I know what your story is going to be.
The problem is every time you tell this, you correct me because I conflate two separate stories together.
Okay.
But there's definitely one, and was it here in Denver?
Well, the Denver one was the exit. The C2E2 was the guy who said that's why he likes it.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, so there's definitely the one we had, C2E2, Chicago 5, 6, 7 years ago. God, it's been ages.
Yeah.
Came up and was like, made a point of saying, like, hey, I listened to the podcast, big fan, and then made the joke of, like, cool, then I need you to explain to me who's your favorite and why is it Tyler, and who's your least favorite and why is it Iggy? And he's like, that's why I listen. I was like, there you go, love it.
That's why, and they said that's why. And then I'll say the Denver one. We were set up at Denver Comic-Con year 2.
Oh.
Right over
Right
there,
over
by
down
the
yonder.
exit.
in that corner.
Yeah, we had that exit booth, and some people on the way out there were just like, Project Nerd, love your podcast, listen to you guys all the time, and just kept walking. And we were kind of like, wait,
That just happened?
was that one of our moms?
Yeah.
Or was
Like,
that?
Mom? Thanks, Mom.
What's your story here? Where was
So
that
I
moment?
actually, and it wasn't for me, which sucks, but it was better because we're at C2E2 a few years ago, and one of my co-hosts, Red, who's a very outspoken female, and she thought nobody listened. They came up and noticed her, and we love you on the podcast so much better than him. And she's like, oh my God, you listen to us? We're in Chicago, so we're not even the home turf.
Right.
And this comes out, and she's like, my God, I'm never going to get your head through that door because you're noticed outside of the state. And she's just like, all right, people listen.
I think I'm gonna speak this one for you. Another big moment for you was the Westward's Top 10 Denver podcast.
I did make top 10.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, there you go.
I wasn't even expecting that because I thought someone was joking with me. They're like, you're in the Westward's Top 10. I'm like, shut up.
There you go.
Nobody knows me over there. Oh shit, you're kidding me. I am in there. So yes, that was kind of cool. And I didn't pay for it.
There you go. Yeah.
Didn't pay for
I
it.
didn't pay for it.
Sliding that money over. Are there any? We've got like I said, we got a handful of people out here. Any questions? Or y'all just liking our stories and banter? Anything?
I don't like our stories.
You don't like our stories?
Don't like our stories. They're waiting for the next group to come on stage.
They
really.
were like, oh wait,
They're
this,
like,
Like,
I'm just-
I think we were sit down in the wrong chair.
That's
they're
right.
like,
They were
this
supposed to
was
be
in
awesome.
Hall H. This was my bad.
I'm just gonna sit down.
What
Brush
pan-
my feet.
Panel. Well, who? Okay, let's take
Questions?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
The
let's
mic
do this.
should be on, right there behind you.
All right.
Here for it.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
okay.
Perfect. Hi, I'm Rain. Love you guys. That's great.
Thank you.
So my question is, if, in your opinion, is it better to say focus on one thing and branch out to other things if you have more than one idea? Because it's hard to try and whittle that down into an area or an avenue, and then I feel boxed, and I'm like,
So you're asking the wrong group because we have a podcast network of like close to 24. So maybe you got.
I have an answer for that, and this kind of goes to like some of the you must do. Your format is key, and bouncing around is fine as long as you're staying within your topic. I mean, as you get more comfortable, bouncing around and being more sporadic, which all of us will attest, is going to happen. Even you got the guys that are doing gaming, they tangent all of the time. Vadim has to edit out half of our tangents because they just don't. They make the cut reel as far as the bloopers. It's great, but going off topic and then circling back around, it's not bad as long as you're trying to stay within that topic.
Yeah, I think picking the format is big because, like, you talk about, like, there's definitely very specific podcasts that are, whether they be narrative or investigative story, like where it's like, no, this is a topic that we need to tell. We can take these side paths as long as they're all tying back to the main narrative. But then there's also like the original Nerdcast, which is literally just we're going to sit down and whatever topics come up is what we're going to talk about, and that's why people listen to it, and that works as a format. But we've also caught ourselves even in that format where we would get onto the same sorts of side paths or the same sorts of like weird loop arounds, and then turned out was like we actually need to either A, stop talking about that on the podcast, or in B,
Yeah.
most cases we need to start another podcast that's literally just that piece of it so that we
Yeah.
can leave it off of this one,
That was-
which
Mark
we
for
have
later.
100% done before.
He's actually talking about our DCEU shitcast because we complain about the DCEU and we're at the point where like, okay, 2/3 of all of our episodes are complaining about what Warner is doing.
Right.
Maybe we need a separate one. But yeah, I think you guys both nailed it. Like if your general format is format, it has a little more freedom. We have shows though, like for example, Murder She Joked on our network. It is an improv podcast that is basically pretending to be one of those murder investigation podcasts. So they've got to stay in character and stick to the topic to make that work. To where if you're just, like I said, more general topics, which is your show, the shows that we've typically done,
Yeah.
you get a little more leeway for that going off topic here and there. Because our audience expects it.
And then you'll find yourself, and we've done this before. If you're doing even if you're doing like a narrative or a very specific journalistic thing where you're like, this is the story we're going to tell. We're going to research it. We're going to do all the work. We're going to put producers on it. We're going to do the work, and then But then in the process of even putting that piece together, you find this new tangent that's like a whole nother thing, and it's like trying to find, can you weave it in? Can you not weave it in? And then now our 6-episode series is 10 episodes long, and 2 of them are about not the right topic, and editing is important.
Yeah. This is a great question.
Being able
though.
to cut it, being able to leave stuff on the floor is it's hard.
It's hard but necessary.
Yeah.
What's your next question?
Thank you. So, do you find it hard to do multiple podcasts and keep them lined up? And
We find it difficult to not
How much
to
time do we have?
not
Yeah.
start a new one every week.
How much time do we have? I mean, I'm on 4 different podcasts, and it's just knowing my role for each one is kind of it's different because for 2 of the shows, I'm running it. So for the interviews and for Weekend Geek Update, that's all me. But for the 2 others, I'm more vocal, more comic relief, more I can unleash a little bit more than what I normally would on my show.
Yeah.
Right, and I think too, for some of our shows, it depends. You need to look at your hours, and it goes back to what you're saying. Because if I run this show, am I doing graphics? Am I editing? Am I getting everybody together if we have guests? Or is we have shows that are just, this is a live stream, it's a game show on Tuesday night, and so it drops Wednesday how it was, unless something dramatic happened on it. So that one's like, I have this hour, then a half hour committed to get it ready afterwards. And then there's other shows to where it's like I said, I can show up, record, the other host, make sure it gets to an editor.
Those are the best
Depends.
ones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
Those are my
much easier.
favorite.
Yeah.
Us as a podcast network, we're on a couple, we've been on a couple, but we have a lot of shows that are other people, too. So you luckily don't have to see our face and hear our voice on everything on Project Nerd.
For the better.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you don't want to burn yourself out either.
That
Yeah.
too.
Oh, I mean,
That's
here's
a
the
great
thing.
point.
It is very easy to do multiple ones, and at the same time, incredibly hard. Because, like, we'll talk about it, and we're not the right poster child for this. Is consistency is key when you're like going to do this. Like, if you're going to commit to a thing, it's a weekly thing, it's a bi-weekly thing, it's a whatever. But then making sure that, like, oh, there's 4 people that are typically on this. Can all 4 of them always be available every week to do the thing? And then you talk about the editing, and then you talk about the recording time and linking up schedules and doing the thing, and then whatever. The actual just talking about whatever it is you want to talk about, that's the easy part. Like, it's then getting it from point A to point B so that it's there. And then you get to the place where how present or how topical does it have to be? Can we put 10 in the can and not have to do anything for a minute or that kind of stuff? So
Yeah, and that's big because the consistency piece, your audience is coming back to look at it every time you post it. And whether you're former hobbits doing a podcast now or you're us, if you're expected to show up every Monday to see an episode and you start going Mondays without them being there, you're not looking there anymore, right?
Yeah,
So
you
that's
abandon it
right.
quickly.
Yeah, so the consistency is a great piece, and kind of tying that back into, can I handle this many hours and stay consistent? And then that kind of gives you your answer on how many can I do.
I kind of just want. I've been trying my
questions.
best not to get distracted, but I want to just turn this into a podcast of we just have to like name the cosplays.
Oh,
that
I know.
walk by.
I've been wanting to like pick people apart as they've been walking by because some people have turned their noses up at us, and I like, fine, just keep on walking.
Oh,
We
I
don't
just
want to
wanted
talk to
I've
you
been wanting
anyway.
to like call out like, oh my god, you're cosplaying as blank character. I've never seen that. Well done. Let's give a hand.
This is true.
Fanboying. We
See a
got-
hobbit with earmuffs. Now there's something you don't see every day.
I think so.
Yes, you. Unless you're from Discworld, and then that's absolutely acceptable. Professor Sprout.
Oh,
okay,
Oh, there we
nice.
go.
I like it.
Nicely.
Yeah,
Listen.
it's not one you see often.
Nah,
That's
yeah.
very
You
good.
Now when
you
you see-
never see. I think I've seen a Rincewind once, maybe ever.
Okay.
Like you don't see a lot of Discworld. I wish
No.
you saw more
Oh,
Discworld.
I would love more Discworld.
Like a Colin and a Nobby or a Captain Carrot or.
Did you have a question
Even the
about
Grim
being
Reaper.
on topic? I think it
Death
was.
would be
Was there a
great.
question?
The Witches, Granny Weatherwax? I'd be down. I'm here for it.
yes. I mean, I've seen Suitcase.
I've seen the luggage.
I've seen luggage
Two
all over the
flower-
place.
and Rincewind you'll see every now and then with the
Right.
wizard hat. And
All right,
everything.
who else has questions for
Yes,
us?
more questions,
We
'cause
got
we'll
one
just
more
rant and
question
rable.
right here.
Can we do a Discworld podcast?
So I'm currently in the process of starting an educational podcast.
Okay.
In terms of, I have a lot of education relating to languages and history, and I'm trying to figure out how to split those up and, pick the boundaries for. Okay, well, I don't want to go too far in a rabbit hole on Mongolians in the 12th century. So how do you choose the boundaries of what you cover?
Well, so first question, do you have an audience somewhere already, or is this brand new with nothing?
Brand new.
Okay. So the reason I asked that is if you had an audience, source them, right? Ask them, where do you want this to go? I think, and we touched on it a little bit, you're going to learn by probably doing it the way you shouldn't have done it in the first place. I mean, we talked about that in our first season, starting with the certain mics, doing the things. Probably people are going to respond, though. It's going to go back to what we were saying, of being when you're comfortable. Where you feel comfortable talking is probably where you'll see the biggest response. Because if you feel like you have to go a certain route and it sounds more monotone and like you're reading a script and it doesn't feel as comfortable, you might not attract as much audience. People like, I mean, I'm sure you do, not just podcasts, but movies, sport.
Mm-hmm.
You like it when people are passionate about that thing. So if you're showing that passion and that road takes you directly down the middle or more one way, you might find more audience just because of that.
And there's no one right way to do it. The one thing I would say is always also you want to decide how do you envision people consuming it, or how do you want them to consume it? Because especially when something like an educational podcast where there's a clear, like, there's an objective. Like, here's a thing that we are going to communicate, that I'm going to communicate in a certain way. How am I going to split that content up? But then you go into things where it's like there are educational podcasts or like informative podcasts I listen to that it's a weekly podcast. It's never more than an hour long. It's meant to be consumed on like a commute, or it's a weekly, it's a relationship. But then there's ones where you get into other educational podcasts like something like a Revolutions, where it's like it's a set script, it's a set. We're going to do X number of episodes. Each one's going to be exactly this long, and each one's going to talk about a topic chronologically like that. Or then you get into ones where it's like something like I'm trying to think of an example, like a hardcore history. It's like, it's going to be 3 episodes and each one's going to be 3.5 hours long, you know? So
one of the things, and coming from the radio side, this is early on in like the AM side where you're learning to talk and you're talking and talking and talking and talking. What they'll introduce to some people who struggle with it is cue cards. And this is probably the best thing, especially given what you're trying to do, is I would break them out into topics. These are the key points that you need to hit. You can vary from whatever you want to say, but keep it tight, and that way you have your goalposts that you're constantly aiming for. Does this follow underneath this topic that I want to cover? How is the breakdown? And just do it that way. So at least you're not scripted, but you at least have kind of a direction that you want it to go, and you'll develop your own flow and your tone as you progress with that. And pretty soon you won't need the cue cards. You'll know immediately how you want to break it down, because like doing interviews, you could put Iggy, actually all three of us, down for an interview and we have our same menu. The questions are going to be different, but we in our mind already know the routine from just repetition and just doing it.
Right. I think, and based on your question, something else y'all both brought up that made me think of this, it seems unrelated, but at the start, listen to yourself. Nobody likes their own voice. You don't want to listen to it, but you have to listen to yourself, because you don't realize how many filler words you use.
Crutch
you don't
words.
realize things like that. And you have to learn, too, that the way I talk to somebody in conversation may not be the way I need to talk into a microphone. And the only way you can do that is by listening to yourself. So tying that to what you were asking, what we're all saying, too, when you listen to it, be honest with yourself. Is this an episode I would listen to if I wasn't the one recording it? And that might help you, too, on that direction.
And this is going to sound weird, and you'll find it's true later. And this is a radio thing. Smile when you're talking. And it honestly does come through the mic. How you doing? See? He wanted to see right away. He's like, who's smiling while they're talking? I don't believe that at all. It comes through, the energy changes, your delivery changes, as well as your voice and everything else that goes with it. It's a stupid trick, but it works extremely well.
Yeah. Perfect. Any other questions? Or
No, I think that's pretty awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Languages, you said?
Yeah, languages and history. I'm thinking about starting 2 separate ones. I can speak English and German, and working on some other ones right now. And yeah.
Wow. All right. That's wild.
here for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm in. Language is a
Language is
fascinating
fun.
thing. It
Language
is-
and food, I'm telling you.
Oh, okay. Food's a fascinating thing for me, for
Yes.
sure.
I don't know how we've never done one on that before. Like, I mean, we've had a lot of podcasts that turned into food podcasts.
But like an actual series. It's a great question. Great question. We have a few more people who have joined us, too. So there's an open mic if you have questions.
Good questions.
We're
Good
talking
luck.
about podcasting. If y'all want to learn how to podcast, if you're just curious of what we've learned about podcasting.
I also do love that we're projecting like a podcasting 101 to the podcast booths, which is entertaining to me.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we could talk platforms. What do you do after you recorded a podcast? I mean, that because nobody, once you've recorded it, what do you do with it?
Listen, you're going to want that cowbell. Love it.
There we go.
Yes.
What do you do?
I upload to Podbean actually.
Hey,
we use Podbean.
Friends.
Podbean is inexpensive. You can, if you want to have a bigger space and archive, I think it's like $10, $20 a month.
I feel like I spent a lot more than that.
Yeah,
a month, so
I know.
There might be something.
So
Did I sign up for the wrong
oh
plan?
crap! But Podbean.
No, but it is affordable.
It is. It is great, and they do tutorials, and they've got things to help monetize as you grow. So, and they're easy to use, and they do a lot of the work for you because if you upload and then they'll share it to iTunes and Amazon and a couple like FM.com, which is the new one that they just popped up on their radar. So
yeah, you just link the accounts and
Yeah.
it auto pushes them all out to a bunch of them.
And they have surprisingly robust tools for like tracking like traffic and stuff like that. Compared to some of the other ones, you're going to pay a lot more for.
Yeah, because it'll give you a
less.
breakdown for 30 days, last 10 days. I mean, you can get ridiculous with the breakdowns, and it'll even show you on your pie chart who's downloading from what services, which is even handier.
And where your audience is commit to that channel too. So we've done a lot more video, and we realize it's many years later, so our YouTube is much smaller than our other channels. So we continue to rip that audio and put it onto our Podbean. Because there are some people, you mentioned commuting, there's some people who I just want to hear the audio podcast.
I just want to listen to it.
I'm driving, I'm doing something. And then there's the other people who want to watch the video.
But I mean, it kind of reminds me of like old school radio when you're like sitting listening to the old, horror stories on AM at 10 o'clock at night. And
You're
just
really
like,
showing
ooh,
your age
I
now.
know, I grew up in Wisconsin. There is
Right.
nothing out there.
That's
Nothing
fair.
but bugs and cheese.
And late night horror stories on
Late
the radio.
night horror stories. They're
I
all
do
filmed
watch
there.
a lot of YouTube, but I definitely 99% of my podcasts are drive to work, drive from
Yeah.
work. So.
Right.
So it works.
No, Podbean's what we use to. YouTube, obviously, for video.
Yeah, obviously.
I mean, YouTube's the go-to. I think not only is it an important platform right now for you to use, but also understanding this isn't YouTube 10 to 12 years ago. So you're not going to put one video out there and immediately have 2 million followers
No.
and listeners and monetize. It goes back to the consistency piece, goes back to taking work, being out there.
Hashtags.
Yes, everything like that. You could tag.
Sacrificing small animals to the algorithm.
Right. And we also have stayed because projectnerd.com is our home.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's an audio podcast, a video podcast, something that we did an interview here, wherever we put it, it also ends up on Project Nerd. So that audience that knows us, wants all of us, they still have that one central location. And it goes back to that workload we talked about, because when I now think about a new podcast series, I'm uploading the audio to Podbean. I'm uploading the video to YouTube. I'm copying the video with that audio link to our Project Nerd post.
Yep.
I'm scheduling them all to go live at a certain time. I've made graphics that are typically different size on YouTube than it is on our website, that is something like that. Then we have our social media, and we've got to push out, we've got to let people know that follow us on social media, it's there. So yeah, all of that comes into play.
And I
too.
may be an outlier on this, but talk about having the home base, having a web page, even if it's something, a Squarespace out of the box basic website, having some sort of home base with something about the podcast on it.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing I hate more than getting into a new podcast, wanting to know more about it, wanting to see a catalog or something, and searching the name of it in Google, and all it pulls up is like their Podbean page and their Apple iTunes page, whatever, and they don't have an actual website. I may be alone in that, but it drives me up the wall.
No,
please
it's
make
annoying.
a website for your
Yes.
podcast.
And
Yeah.
WordPress, very easy to use. And Blue Space? What's the other one?
Sure.
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 WordPress.
WordPress is perfectly fine. Just
Very
have
easy to
somewhere
use.
where I can go and see some. It doesn't even have. You don't even have to list all your episodes. You can just
No.
link to your Podbean. But at least tell me, here's the name of the two hosts, and here's the premise, and something.
And at the end of Podbean, they have all of the links that you can just basically copy, paste, and publish. It's very easy to use.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's fantastic. Yeah, because it also has that WordPress
Mhm.
interaction too.
Yeah.
So, any other questions? We got a few other people here. We're thinking about it.
Thinking about it?
Think about it. Well, let's
No?
see. So you talked platform, which is great. I think we've talked consistency.
We talked gear a
There's
little
consistency.
bit.
Yeah, gear. There's a lot more to it. I think a big thing though, No, we're at a con, so I'll say that. And you've seen this too. I see our big. If you want to grow, go to where your audience is, right?
Yeah.
We get more new. If we do a convention weekend, the weeks afterwards, we see a bigger boost than we do by posting anything on social. If we were to pay for like Google Ads or anything like that, because you connect with these people, you're in the world that it is, and we're telling you all right now. If you go to Project Nerd in the next couple weeks, you'll see content from here. This is where you were. It's exciting. So it's that go to where your audience is and let them know that you exist.
Yes.
There are so many podcasts out there. Not that nobody's, like, people will still find you randomly. It will happen, but not at the level you can get people by actually going to your audience.
I mean, just interacting, talking with people, even if you were up here doing this. Not going to guarantee it, but I'm sure some of you are going to check us out. There's probably a couple of other people walking by that like, God, you guys just talk way too much.
My wife, specifically.
your wife. I want you back at the table. And it's fine. You got to interact. You're a podcaster. You're here to entertain. Develop the skin, develop the nerve to go out and interact with people and to talk. Find your fellow podcasters and chat. Talk, look at their gear. Iggy and I are notorious for going to other podcasts. Yeah, what do you got there?
What do you got there?
You actually just made me think of something else with that too. You're great at it, like making me think. It's not a competition either.
It's not a competition.
Like, who here listens to podcasts? Do y'all listen to podcasts? Do you listen to just one and refuse to listen to any other podcast? Sometimes.
He's like, yeah.
You're ruining my point right now. No. But for the most part, you're open to listening to something. Like, if you listen to a podcast of a certain topic and you're interested in that topic and now you see another one, you might give it a go. I think that's important. And as geeks, we always need to remember too. I understand that mainstream is geek culture now. For most of us, and especially people older than us, that wasn't the case when we were younger. We were always the outsiders. We need to look out for each other and help each other. And if you're helping others grow, those same people can give you advice too on where you need advice as well. And I think, especially here, I mean, looking out here, we got the real nerds over here with this. These are all people we've talked to and communicated with. It's a community of podcasts here.
Listen,
we all support each other, and
there's nothing a comic book fan likes more than a crossover. Like
Exactly.
There's a good chunk of time when we first started going to cons where a good 90%, good half of our podcasts were just crossover episodes. Like, we're going to go interview this podcast, and then we're going to go interview this podcast.
And then they'd have us on theirs, and it was great.
It's fantastic.
And what works for some podcasts may not work for you. Trust me. You're going to listen to something you're going to try, or you're going to see something they're doing that you can't wrap your brain around, and you're going to be like, don't be upset. Just keep absorbing. Keep finding more stuff.
Yeah. Did this vampire here have a question for us on the podcasting?
Yeah.
Nausea.
Nausea.
No, just.
Yeah, you.
Oh, you had a question?
Yes.
Yes.
Nope. Okay.
No.
No. Okay.
Rule number 3: don't put anyone on a spot.
Right. She's had like 300, 400 years to think about it. I feel like.
Yeah, I know.
Story,
She's had plenty of time. I mean, what else? What do you do in the dark? I mean, jeez.
Yeah, we still got about 10 minutes or so, I think, before we have to wrap. So we have room for more questions if y'all are thinking of anything.
Yeah, if we brought anything up or you're uncertain.
I think.
No, she's off to find a snack.
Let's probably. While we're waiting on that, let's spend a few minutes. So,
yeah.
Okay.
I'll ask a question.
Yes.
All right.
Who do you think would win in a fight? Reptar on steroids or Godzilla hungover?
So this is podcasting 101, ma'am. But we'll still
we'll
entertain
play
your
your
question.
game.
We'll still
Ma'am,
entertain
this is
your
a Wendy's.
It's the audience is always right, right? So we'll play your.
Because our improv skills are top shelf.
So Reptar on steroids or Godzilla hungover?
I don't.
How big is Reptar?
Yeah. Are we talking full size?
I mean, Reptar's
It's been a long
basically
time
just-
since I've seen
Is basically just
the toy.
No,
Godzilla analog.
Yeah.
Reptar from like the TV show where he was the same size as Godzilla.
I
Okay.
pull special caveat, and both of them are drunk, and Gamera comes in and wipes them both out.
What about Mecha Godzilla?
Mecha Godzilla's a joke.
I mean, did you?
I mean,
That last movie.
Gamera just falls back on him. It's done. Over.
I
Gamera win.
I think
Godzilla always wins.
I think in the end here, mankind loses. That's my answer.
There goes
To see
Tokyo.
Reptar and Godzilla turned against each other, we're all losers in that.
Go Godzilla.
Godzilla
They were
wins,
once
but
closely
afterwards he
connected.
has a green tongue.
Green Zone.
I know everyone was pissed that
Rugrats.
Godzilla had gills in the last one. They're like, what? Godzilla doesn't have gills.
Godzilla does whatever she
We're
wants.
gonna have a whole podcast. This
we're
is like
just-
our DCU podcast on that. I do actually. So with a few minutes left, why don't you tell us? Why don't you give us a little synopsis of what 5280 Geek's all about?
5280 Geek is a pop culture driven website, so I will do interviews here across the country at different cons. We'll do movie reviews. We do a Moment in Geek on our Instagram. The podcast every week. We also do a video podcast. It just kind of depends on what strikes our fancy. We also do a top 5 comics coming out every week, and we're very interactive. It just kind of depends. We've been around since 2016, I think, somewhere around there. Yeah. So 5280geek.com. It's also 5280 Geek on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. No, I'm forgetting something because there's just so many platforms. And it's Weekend
Facebook?
Geek Update.
Did you say Facebook?
Facebook, yeah. Facebook 5280 Geek. Yeah.
Are you on the TikToks?
I am not on the TikToks.
You don't talk to ticks?
I don't ticky-tacky really well, so I can't.
We have a TikTok, but I don't
I
know.
don't have the bandwidth anymore. I mean, I'm doing like all of these other things. Vadim is at his level because he's all like, Smurf, you
So
give me one more
remember,
thing.
so remember, how many hours do you have to give it to that? Like, always go back on.
Go with what works.
So for Project Nerd, the one Tyler and I usually are on, Nerdcast was our flagship podcast for a long time. Mentioned, turnover on the people. So we kind of more generalized it to press play to where various Project Nerd hosts we can just have general topics or we can have guests. So if you look at the last 3 weeks of episodes, they were different guests that were with another one of our hosts named Quentin. We do have some
lots of convention coverage, but
Yeah.
then we also have numerous game shows. So like we have
the last word.
The Last Word is our Around the Horn style show. It's really good.
Nice.
We've got you mentioned Murder She Wrote.
Award-winning Murder, she joked.
Award-winning. And
Award-winning.
you've got Two Guys One Film is on the network.
That's a fun one.
We've got the Game Pitch around video games.
The video game ones have been that goes
I
back to
know.
that consistency.
Consistency. But
Well, it's hard
when
when-
they come out, they're fantastic.
I was going to
Yeah.
say, it's hard on the video games because once you beat it or, everyone else is playing it, you're like,
They're good. They're good.
You'd be amazed how long people can talk about the video game industry, though.
We have
People
more
get
podcasts.
warm.
More
Heated.
podcasts coming too, and then of course there's the Geek Spot, which our vampire friend over here is one of the hosts of. Yes, so the Geek Spot.
hello.
Naja.
But we have, if you go to Project Nerd, you can find another bunch of series that have either come and gone or just getting started or that. We are just ultimately a community of geeks who like to do things, and sometimes that leads to a change in the guard of podcasts.
There's a lot of old fun
Sometimes,
ones out there,
yeah.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because everything's
Lots of good-
archived,
lots
you can go way back.
Lots of good convention coverage. Go watch the movie night. Listen to the movie night ones. Those are
We had
classics.
a couple. We tried to do like a Riff Tracks one for a couple episodes.
See, that would be fun.
It's hard. That
Yes.
is hard, especially because you know that Riff Tracks and Mystery MS. Wow.
MS-3000?
Mystery Science. Yes, thank you. They scripted a bit.
Oh,
we
yeah.
tried to go unscripted, and that was difficult.
Every now and then there'd be gold, but most of it was just like, I don't know how to keep talking about this. I'm just narrating the show now.
At this point.
You're just like going along for commentary.
But unless there's any other questions, we're at about 45 minutes, so we can cut it a couple minutes short. We'll get some time to get another
Break down
awesome podcast on the stage.
whatever's up next.
But
Who is
definitely
up
check out
next?
5280 Geek. Check out Project Nerd. Project
That's-
Nerd is in the community space at C22, so just over this little wall. I don't know what's next.
Project-nerd.com.
We're not next, but we will be here tomorrow. Actually,
Yeah, we'll be
y'all
back.
will be here tomorrow.
We will be back on tomorrow.
I encourage anybody who's walking by to show up. I think it's at 1, right?
For recast.
For total recast.
for
1.
recast, total recast, 1
So
o'clock.
we are going to challenge some Project Nerd and 5280 Geek personalities with recasting Princess Bride if it was being remade this year. And that's the thing is we had to find a gem that none of us want that remade.
No,
it's perfect the way
it
it is.
is.
So now they are going to be faced with the challenge of having to do that.
I got mine written down.
It's going to be all right here.
I haven't
live
even
on
started
stage.
mine yet.
I changed it already because I can't do the guy I wanted because he's dead.
No, it has to be. You're
It has to
casting
be
it
alive.
to be start filming. It's going to
Today.
start filming today.
Yes. So 2 of my choices are out.
Or maybe Tuesday,
'Cause
because maybe
they're
they're taking
kaput.
the holiday weekend. I don't know.
Also, and you have to come to win. I'm the
Yes.
reigning champion. I won last
Did you
year.
win last time?
Did you win?
Yeah, but it wasn't even close.
We did Beetlejuice last year. It was
I
pretty
won.
good.
I won in a walk.
I know why.
We'll have
Okay.
to talk. We'll have to talk off stage on because I have to remember. I can't remember. I probably have the notes still. Anyways,
All right.
that's
So
it
1
for
o'clock
us.
tomorrow.
Yes, join us, and then we have more too. We have one at 4 o'clock tomorrow, and then we close this. We close this mother down.
That's
Project
right.
Nerd will be back here at the end of the day Sunday for our final podcast as well. So come check us out.
Yep. There you go. Now on that bombshell, we shall say goodbye. Run fast, laugh hard,
Thank
and
you,
always be
everybody.
kind. Good night.